we want to start with something very special. And Brian Whedon and David Whedon are going to have a special prayer and a ceremonial drumming to start off our ceremony today. So Brian and David.
This is a prayer in the Wampanoag language of the original inhabitants of this land. We find it appropriate to honor them and open up in this way. Mana kanikona hachik katabatanamu wachi wami kiakwasanish. Katabatanamu wachi kisak. Katabatanamu wachi anakwasak. Katabatanamu wachi aki. Katabatanamu wachi sipuash. Katabatanamu wachi katahanash. Katabatanamu wachi wami awa asak. Katabatanamu wachi wami natonkwasak. Ananama aniyan namana wipi wanikak. Ananama aniyan asina wipi sompwak hong. Creator and ancestors, I thank you for all things. I thank you for the sky. I thank you for the stars. I thank you for the land. I thank you for the rivers. I thank you for the oceans. I thank you for all creatures. I thank you for all my relations. Help us to see what is good. Help us to do only what is right.
It's typical that we give gifts when honoring folks, and so this is Frank for all your service and doing a great job at interpreting the history of the schoolhouse to everyone that's come through. I want to present you with a braid of sweetgrass. It's something that we use to cleanse, and it's an aromatic wetland grass that's local to the region, and we use it in prayer and ceremony and stuff, but I'd like you to have this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's nice.
Uncle Earl, I have another gift for you. This is some bear oil that was given to us by a member of the Wabanaki Confederacy, and she gifted it to me, and I'm passing it on to you for whatever you need it for. Bear grease is something that we use for different greases for different things, a lot of different purposes.
No skunk oil?
I don't couldn't get my hands on the skunk. I'm working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now if you guys could remain standing, we'll sing an honor song in honor of our honorees today. Way, way, yeah.
Could I have a picture between the two,
course.
these two giants? Oh, Tricia's going. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Now I'm totally intimidated. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, David. That was wonderful. Since this is a history award, I'd like to tell you a bit about how this award came to be and why we're all here today. And I promise you there will not be a quiz after this. As I was doing this, I'm sure Rosemary, I kept thinking of Rosemary because I kept writing and then I kept adding all this historical stuff in, and then I'd read it again and I'd go, yeah, this is really good, and then I put it down as I tell my students, and I go back and I read it again and I'm going, oh God, this is just too much, these poor people. So, but I have to tell you how this award came about. In 2018, the Mashpee Historical Commission, we established an award, and we had been thinking about what can we do to, is that your book? Oh, this modern technology, Earl. Okay, so our bells were ringing and we came up with this great idea.
I think it's my daughter.
Oh,
My daughter's in Florida. I have a daughter in Florida, and I think she's probably calling.
well, she's more than welcome. So we wanted to think about a way that we could honor the work that's been done in the town to preserve its unique history, as well as get the word out about all the wonderful things that are happening in Mashpee historically. So we decided to come up with an annual award with the purpose to, and I quote, recognize efforts made each year by an individual or group to preserve Mashpee's history. This may include oral and written history, preservation of cemeteries, landmarks, documents, maps, photographs, artifacts, and other ways to advance the knowledge of Mashpee's unique history. Today we are celebrating Schoolmaster Frank Lord and Chief Flying Eagle Earl Mills for their invaluable contributions to preserving as well as sharing their knowledge of the history of Mashpee with others. Frank's is a special award recognizing his 10 years of service as schoolmaster of the Mashpee one-room schoolhouse. Earl's award is in recognition of his recent work to preserve the parsonage at 431 Main Street. I want to especially thank the members of Frank and Earl's families who could join us here today, because these gentlemen's activities would not have been possible without you folks. Your love and support, I am sure, helped them through some hard times, some good times, and you helped spur them on to get the job done. I also want to thank the town of Mashpee's administration in supporting the work of the Mashpee Historical Commission. I want to thank Rosemary Burns-Love, Richard DeSauger, Ann Graham. Where is Ann? There she is, right behind the desk, as usual. Brian Hyde, Nancy Soderberg, Joan Tavares Avant, Brian Wheaton, for all the work they've done to make this day possible, as well as David Wheaton, who made the ceremony possible. Now I'd like to introduce Richard DeSauger, who will present the first award.
Thank you, Ava. Again, my name is Richard DeSauger, and as a new member of the Historical Commission, I was asked to have the honor of introducing former Historical Commission member and Mashpee schoolmaster Frank Lord. I had the privilege last year to shadow Frank during several of his tours of the one-room schoolhouse and take dubious notes, and was honored and privileged to be asked if I would have any interest in taking over the schoolmaster duties. As Frank said, he was retiring from that position. I certainly knew I could not replace Frank, but instead could only fill the position once he retired. Frank clearly is master at being schoolmaster. His kind demeanor attracts people to him, and his knowledge of the schoolhouse is beyond reproach. He is beloved, and I mean beloved, by the students and teachers of the Quashnet School. And when I went there early this year to meet with the third graders with Frank, I felt like I was accompanying a rock star celebrity with everyone seeking Frank out. Everyone in the school knew Frank Lord. Frank is the best example of what Thomas Jefferson called the active citizen. Since coming to Mashpee in 2003 from Duxbury, Frank was instrumental in getting the schoolhouse set up once it moved from its current location outside in the park, having made its journey from the grounds of the old Indian Meeting House, before that from its original location in South Mashpee. He set up and served as president of the Mashpee One-Room Schoolhouse Preservation Council. He served on the Mashpee Community Preservation Commission and was instrumental in securing $35,000 in funds for the one-room schoolhouse. That greatly assisted the $50,000 that the Women's Club had raised. For 10 years, he has been schoolmaster, and each year has toured the town's third graders through the schoolhouse. That in itself is an accomplishment to do that. He had back-to-back tours each day with the group divided, so also to be visiting the Wampanoag Indian Museum a short distance up street. He totally immersed himself into the school building and its history. And with the assistance of his wife, Betsy, they developed into a schoolhouse tag team, with Betsy keeping track of time for Frank, for without so, his enthusiasm would keep him going forever. Frank also worked closely with the Mashpee High School kids in getting the students to make the schoolhouse desks and the slate boards that the touring students use, as well as helping two Mashpee High School senior projects dealing with Blind Joe Amos and Blanche Pocknet, which are now inside the school. He worked closely with our historian and longtime commission member Rosemary Burns Love in finding out missing pieces of the schoolhouse's history, as well as the individual histories of the members of that last class to attend the school before closing in 1901, the photo of which we have mounted on the schoolhouse's interior wall, and which is a part of the tour's lesson plans. He has also taken his schoolhouse knowledge on a road show around town, giving talks and PowerPoint presentations on the school and its history. In 2009, Frank received the Mashpee Chamber of Commerce Distinguished Service Award for his commitment to the one-room schoolhouse. Frank is on the board of directors of Tales of Cape Cod and very active member of the Mashpee Men's Club, and a frequent flyer on the table outside Roach Brothers fundraising for the club. In 2016, Frank and Betsy moved to West Yarmouth, and he resigned from the Historical Commission. But right up until this last Memorial Day, he was there in the schoolmaster role, as he has done for the past 10 years. The Historical Commission would like to honor Frank with two gifts, one for himself and one that will be permanently hung in the schoolhouse, so all in the future will know the tremendous contribution Frank has made to the schoolhouse, Mashpee's history, and the children of this town, and all who toured through its classroom walls. They will see that one person can indeed make a difference. The wooden plaque to be hung in the school reads, as follows. The town of Mashpee honors schoolmaster and historian Frank Lord for 10 years of dedicated efforts in promoting the one-room schoolhouse and touring school children, townspeople, and visiting tourists through Mashpee's historic 1831 school, dated June 2019. This will hang inside the school permanently, and we have a gift as well. Are you blue or red?
He's blue.
He's blue.
Favorite color.
A gift as well from the Historical Commission to Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I open this now?
Absolutely.
Save the ribbon. Save the ribbon. Oh, wow. Look at that.
Say something?
What a handsome schoolmaster. I wonder who he is.
Frank, why don't you give it to me and I'll let him get it. It says Frank Lord, Mashpee one-room schoolhouse, schoolmaster, 2009, 2019. It's a mirror with a picture of the one-room schoolhouse at the top. And of course, every time.
I really shouldn't be standing here today because I really built on the work that people had done before I arrived. Going back to Sunny Merritt, when she was on tour with Ann Whitlow of the old meeting house, when they walked out, they said, "What's that cute little building over there?" And everyone said, "Oh, that's where the cemetery workers keep their fertilizer and their lawnmowers and things." And then she did a little investigating and found out that the purpose of that little building really wasn't to be a storage, but to be a school. And as mentioned earlier, she helped to raise $50,000 to get that school repaired. And first thing they had to do was to hire Bob Pritchard, whose business was getting rid of the raccoons that had been enjoying great facilities up in the ceiling. And if you've ever seen a building that's been used by raccoons, you know what happens. The roof was leaking. Luckily, when it was down in Red Brook Road, when the developer of New Seabury bought all that land, he also acquired the schoolhouse. And luckily, they were using it for storeroom and kept a good roof on it at that time. Otherwise, it would never survive. It was moved in 1975 up to where it sat for the next 25 years by the old meeting house. Attempts were made to restore it, raise money, but it didn't happen until that day when they found out that that little building was a schoolhouse. And they helped to raise $50,000 to repair it. Unfortunately, for the next 5 years, it still sat there with the termites and the carpenter ants having a wonderful time chewing away at all the wood because it didn't have a vapor barrier underneath. And so when we were able to raise money through the CPC to relocate it over here, we built a foundation under it. But all of the stories that I tell the students at school didn't necessarily come from me. A lot of them came from Rosemary Burns. When the kids said, "Hey, where'd they go to the bathroom? Because none of our pictures of the schoolhouse showed an outhouse. So I would say, well, probably since there was a lot of woods around, the boys would go in the woods and the girls would go to a local family and use their outhouse. But typically, Rosemary continuously providing me with information about things that I could share. She found out that there was a authorization in the 1890s to repair the South Mashpee school outhouse. So we know there was one. We just don't know where it is. But those are the kind of things that I could keep adding to the story. And as was said, the high school, we tried to get as many people involved in the process of restoring the schoolhouse. And all of our furniture was made by the students at the high school. The third grade class, actually it was the fifth grade class, they built a scale model of the schoolhouse, which is on display permanently now in the Quashnet School. I made this little reproduction so when I went around to do PowerPoint presentations, people could see what it looked like. You notice one thing, the woodshed. If you look out the window, there's no woodshed. So as that stands right now, that is the Aquay Chapel and Schoolhouse. Because in 1901, when it closed, the Baptist Youth Society bought it. And then eventually it was used as a library, as a community center. It had many resources. And in 1975, a bicentennial committee moved it from there up to where it sat for the long time next to the meeting house. So all of these stories came from books that I read, things that I heard, people listening to Earl, listening to Earl and his stories, talking to other people like Ruby Mills, finding out what was going on in those days. And so I owe this award to be shared with many, many people who are in this room right now and others who aren't here but have written things in the past that we could use. So I want to thank you. And it was mentioned about Betsy. We have a saying in our family, you have the patience of Job. And that's my wife. She was the most patient person, and she did help a lot. I have a tendency, as you can tell, to talk, and she would have a little card to hold up. You've got 10 minutes left, you've got 5 minutes left, you've got 1 minute left, and then... And Richard DeSorga, who just recently has been involved, has done so much meaningful research beyond what I've done. I used to talk about the fact that we knew that there were approximately 20 warriors who went off to the Revolutionary War, and very few of them came back. But he now knows the names of all, not all, but many of those, way beyond what I had, knowledge I had. So I owe a lot of my work that I've done to many, many people. Nancy Soderberg has been this great support over the years. Ava taking over recently has done a great job. Brian Hyde, everybody have contributed to the story. And I wish I could cut everything up and share it with you. But thank you for great work that people have done. Thank you. Earl, you want some more water?
Thank you.
Okay, where are my glasses? No? Thank you. What is it saying about it takes a village? It takes a community. I was just knocking my socks off, so I just lost control of my head. Okay, we got one more person. Mr. Mills. Well, I started off when I was knowing we were gonna, that Earl was coming after Frank, and I said, okay, so once again, what can I say in just a few words? It's impossible. And I thought, well, maybe I'll have Earl talk for himself. And then I thought, well, no, I'll be shorter than. So did I make a good decision? Yeah. Well, it can't be done because Earl's love and interest in this town runs so deep, more than anyone I've ever met in any community that I've been in. So today, Earl is receiving the first Mashpee Historical Commission Preservation Award for his actions in preserving the parsonage from the elements. So it would be available for restoration and thus available to future generations. The parsonage is one of the few remaining historically significant buildings in town. And the exact date of the parsonage is circa about 1849. There's a record in the Barnstable County Records of Deeds that on April 18th, 1849, Ebenezer Adequin obtained the property. According to another record, on December 8th, 1852, it states that Ebenezer Adequin and Benjamin Adequin, both of Mashpee, in consideration of $550 paid by inhabitants of said parish of Mashpee, a certain tract of land, which is the parsonage. And once again, I was going towards the best way to kind of express the importance of the parsonage and some memories of it. So I went to talking with the elders of Mashpee, a book that Earl has written, one of many. And he says, according to his work, the building was sold by Ebenezer Adequin, my great-great-uncle, and Benjamin Adequin, my great-uncle, to the inhabitants of the parish in 1852. It was sold for $550 to house the presiding minister. It became known as the parsonage. The original building was much larger, with a corridor of outbuildings extending from the northwest side of the building into a barn. As already noted, the building was maintained by the parish committee. During my childhood, the parish house was used as a parsonage for the Baptist minister, Reverend Donald Redfield. He and his wife were a typical, and he has that in quotes, small-town minister and wife team, with a son, Donald. Mrs. Redfield played the piano organ, organized the choir, assisted with sewing circles, youth programs, church suppers, etc. Reverend Redfield had an extensive garden and was very involved with the 4-H programs of the school. So it was, you could tell, it was the center of the community. And it began to deteriorate after a while. It was also used by the tribal council for a while. People had lived there for housing, and in 1962 it was decided that a renovation needed to be done. So according to Earl, the parsonage was in dire need of a very extensive renovation. The outbuildings in the barn were in total disrepair, and this whole section had to be removed. The kitchen and the bathroom needed a total makeover. Shirley and I, with our gaggle of children, 4, made he's calling it a fun team. And the parsonage has suffered greatly still in the ravages of time and weather and use, and many have feared that it was beyond repair. I know in the Historical Commission we had several conversations about what to do, how, what can we do to save this beautiful piece of Mashpee history. So I know that Earl was really bothered by what was happening with the parsonage, and by entire generations of the Mills family to the preservation of Wampanoag and Mashpee history and culture. And this is just another piece. I want to make sure that I also mention that this preservation effort is being followed up by David Wheaton with his work on getting grants and money. Maybe we need to do some more social chowder dinners and ham and bean suppers so I could learn what it was really like back then. But during town meeting, it was approved to have funds set aside to continue the work on renovation of the parsonage, so that maybe 50 years from now somebody else would be doing ham suppers and chowder socials, trying to keep this beautiful building in good shape. So I also want to thank the town manager, Rodney Collins, that when he had heard that the Mashpee Historical Commission was going to present this award to Earl and that we were going to be doing this on an annual basis, we had mentioned that we were going to get a plaque, to give to Earl, and he said, I want it hung in the town hall. He said, I want it in a special place where everyone can see it and that it can be added to over the years. So I thank Mr. Collins for his suggestion, and I have here the plaque that will be hanging in Town Hall with Earl H. Mills Sr., 2018, Mashpee Historical Commission Preservation Award. Now, since you can't take that home and put it on your front door, we do have a little gift for you. This is for you.
Oh, well. I probably should open it, shouldn't I, buddy?
I think you should.
I knew you had a red ribbon on it, so that's why I wore my
Well, it really was for your red hat.
Oh. Hey, that guy with the red hat on, he can shimmy all night long. Shimmy and shake. Shimmy and shake, that's it.
Do you want me to take those, Earl? Thank you.
I come from the era of lyrics, and I love to sing. I love lyrics because they said so many things. And they said the things that I would like to say, but I was shy. Now you won't believe that. In the early years I was quite shy. And I really didn't find myself and find the qualities I had and feel like I was headed in the right direction until after I went into service. And then I came out and I became very involved. Oh, wow. Thank you, Ava.
You're welcome.
I don't know what I'd do without Ava. And Richard, where is he?
It's over there.
Oh, my buddy.
He's a genius, that Richard. He writes, he's got a folder that big, a 3-ring, full of what he's collected on the Revolution and the Civil War, and we're doing monuments for out here. We even went, why did I go?
The sun goes down.
Thank you, Ava, and to Ava and Richard and my buddy. Not only my buddy, but my friend, good friend. To my buddy on the committee, stand up so people see you there. He's the one that handles all the stuff on the preservation area.
District.
Yeah, and he's really good, and he's a good buddy. Yeah, when we see each other in the Stop and Shop, we stop and have to find out how each other's doing. Yeah, and to my family, 3 of whom are here today, Ruby. I have to get that little. Could I look at yours? Your little farm there. I won't mention all the names of people that I've been connected to, but and Rosemary. Anytime I needed anything special, I needed something I couldn't find myself, I'd come and check with Rosemary. If I needed something at the archive, I check with Ann. Where's Ann? Yeah, she's in the place where she always is when you come in there, hiding behind that desk. Yeah, she is back there. Yeah. And there's so many people that I met on this path that I've taken through my life. And too many to mention, but it goes back a long time. And I have a lot of stories to tell. Stories about the meeting house, story about the river, stories about catching trout in the river, stories about taking people fishing and hunting as a guide, talking about schools and where we went to school, what we did in school, the teachers, the many teachers that I had when I was going through the school systems. I remember every teacher of any school that I ever went to, including college, because we were brought up that way. The teachers had a special place, and that's how we always looked at teachers, very special. And I stayed in touch with some of my teachers for many, many years until they passed. Miss Consolini was one of them. Miss Consolini was my 1st grade teacher and 2nd grade teacher. Alvima. She said, call me Alvima. I said, I don't know any Alvimas. I only know a Miss Consolini. And I probably would have been held back if I hadn't had her in the 1st and 2nd grade because I was so shy. And I was the youngest person in my class all the way through school. I was the youngest. But anyway, as I said, I have many stories, and I won't tell many of them today. I have written 4 books. My 4th book is to be published, and that's on education, teachers, programs, things we did in school, and the kind of people that came and presented beyond the teachers themselves, that had special activities they brought, like we'd go over to the river and get the eggs, the polywog eggs, and we would show them in the schoolroom for our science course, and bring the herring in and show those in the schoolroom and so forth. And then have a 4-H club. We had gardens. We'd leave the school and go do the gardens while we were still in school. So school was, and learning and part of the community the community with our schoolhouse, as it is, like natural world is our domain. And oh, I have to mention my aunt Jan back there. She's really not my aunt. She's my niece, but because she has made so many contributions to the young girls in the tribe, they talk about clan mothers and so forth. Well, I don't remember ever having clan mothers when we were growing up. But if there was a clan mother today, you want to know how to make mustard relish and piccalilli and can oh, I lose words now. That's why I'm not going to tell too many. I don't know who I thank, but anyway, it's been a play, and my kids back here. That's Roxanne, my oldest, Shelley, my next, Chiefy, Earl Jr., my next. Robert's not here. And my daughter Nancy, I think that was her on the phone, calling me because I sent her a printout about 2 weeks ago of this meeting. I knew she would be calling to say hi and maybe just to talk on her phone. Thank you very much. And it's so nice to have been attached and connected to so many, really just not only my family, but I remember the kids being in the parsonage when we were restoring it, and they had a puppy, and we were doing the floor, sanding the floor of the parsonage, and what was the dog's name? Yeah, teepee. Yeah, because he was laying on the canvas that we was going to use for the teepee and the dog. So they go back to that day of the singing and the dancing, and I have pictures of Shelley at a powwow showing people how to shoot bows and arrows and out in the field, and having the ponies and all that at the powwows for pony rides and stuff. So it's been a work of love for me. I think I mentioned you, didn't I, Ruby? Ruby, baby, it's you. Yeah, there's a song, Ruby. Yeah. And I sometimes sing it to her. And then, of course, my buddy over here, Frank, and Brian, and all the cousins and so forth that are around. Still trying to do some things to keep going forward, and it's not easy. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for coming. And thank you for all the people that are here today that have been part of